So there's a couple of tools that I think are worth mentioning. There's only so much time we have to do these trainings, but there are a lot of tools in TBEST. And it's hard to get to all of them. So I will mention some of them here, and we'll take questions on some of them, if you have any comments on them. So advanced network editing. So we did go over the network editing yesterday, and trip service editing and speeds. But there's a lot of tools for that you can use. You can copy segments and copy patterns and change service and realign networks and have lots of patterns that you need to merge together and merge their schedules together. So it get very complicated in terms of what you're trying to do. But if you know how to code transit and you know how it works in terms of service, then it should be somewhat intuitive to you. But certainly if you're new to transit and you're trying to work through, all these trips and speeds and what does it all mean, then, that's something there. Just do a little groundwork, and TBEST, I think, can help you with that actually, because it's very visual. And it allows you to kind of see your results almost in real time in terms of your service changes and how that affects your roll up to your headways, etc. So I think it's helpful in that area. And that's something, eventually we'll probably make videos on some of this advanced editing techniques when we go next year to make our video training content. That would probably be part of it. But we didn't cover it in this session. And, if you have questions about some of that, or if you're editing and you need help, we'll also reiterate that for the Florida users, you do have technical support through FDOT that you can call myself or Matt or Chris Wigglesworth and just say, hey, I'm trying to use TBEST, I want to get it up and running. I'm trying to digitize routes or edit service or whatever tool you're trying to use, and you need some help with it. That's what we're here to do. We're happy to do it. So don't think that you're, barging in or taking up our time. It's totally fine. Just ask us and we'll help you. All right, so the next one is the COA workflow support tool. We didn't touch on this, but I think this is a pretty good one. And what I'm going to do while we're waiting here is I'm going to kick off a COA process. So this is the COA analysis tool. You can also get to it from your scenarios. We're going to target June 2021 again because it does the observed ridership data. So under workflow support tools, you have comprehensive operational analysis. So again, it's a wizard, and we'll just call this June 2021 Gatorville COA. All right, and we're going to use Alachua as the service area. We're going to use all the routes in the analysis, so that's good. All right, so this is where it kind of gets interesting with this is you can do jurisdictional analysis. And what we want to do is we want to use the MOD zones to do that. So what we want to know is all of our service levels and performance in one report for all of our MOD zones. And we're going to do that based on name. And we also have density ranges, right? So this is one of the outputs of this is density. And it asks you to define high, medium, and low. And generally that's just based on the demarcations of thirds, right? So the bottom third is low density, upper third is high density, and in the middle is medium. Now you can actually click these and drag them, which is pretty nice. So if you want it to be, the bottom 20 is min, the upper is 20 is max, and everything in the middle is medium, you can do that too. So these are draggable, and you can define what density relationships are and how you want to push those into your analysis. So I just hit finish and hit yes, and that will process for a minute. And while that's going, I'm going to talk about the Parcel Editor. So we mentioned this just briefly earlier, where we have the ability to create parcel scenarios and then edit them in TBEST, creating stops, moving them stops, or not stops, parcels around. You actually have the ability to generate parcels based on a distribution of land use types and number of parcels that you would want for those land use types, the square footage you want for those types, and then generate those within an area so you don't have to go through and do those manually. So it will distribute them evenly throughout the area. And so if you have a development that's going in with lots of parcels that are single family, and maybe you have some that are multifamily, you have some shopping in there, and you have others that are in there, you can plunk in how many parcels you want of each, how much square footage of each, and then it will generate the parcels in that area for you. And then you save that scenario, that parcel scenario, and then you can reference it to a network scenario. As I mentioned, then it gets pulled into your model. It gets pulled into your market analysis for you to evaluate. So, so that's a pretty neat tool, and we can open that up and take a look at it once the COA is done. We also have an access via and access to transit tools, which are both dashboards. So these are workflow support tools that exist here: access to transit, access via transit. They act in the same way as the other tools here, the COA and the Title VI's, where they create a result set and it gets stored separate and apart from the source data, and then you can come back to it and analyze it later. So, and those are dashboards. I don't have any example of those up, but in the documentation, the user guide, it does have examples of those that you can get to and use. The Title VI comparison reporting, that is something where some agencies don't use the people trips comparative analysis. They just do a kind of a side-by-side analysis for their Title VI routes in terms of percent minority and coverage. So this comparison reporting for Title VI, that's basically what that gives you. And that's pretty handy if you're doing a service change, you want to look at Title VI changes in your new route structure versus your existing, then this comparison reporting is pretty handy. Updating stop level socioeconomic data. I think this is a really, really important one that I will actually go to this one first because it's the easiest thing to kind of get to and show. And I want to show that to you. So what we'll do is, here's the COA. Okay, so what happens is very similar to the Title VI analysis where you have a console and you have maps. And in this case, you have charts. You didn't have charts in the Title VI, but you do here. And you have reports. The reports are by routes. You have a route density report. You have a route by route and then by category. You also have route observed performance analysis. So this is your route level analysis. And then you have jurisdictional for observed and estimated. So let's do this by jurisdiction, jurisdictional observed ridership analysis. So we want to do this for basically the weekday, which is all of the weekday time periods aggregated. Let's bring this over. Okay, so what this is telling me is in MOD Zone 1, we have, these are the list of routes that serve MOD Zone 1. These are the revenue miles in MOD Zone 1 for Route 2 and so on, and then the total for the MOD Zone 1. The number of revenue hours, the observed ridership, the performance in terms of observed ridership per mile and per hour. And then you go to oh boy, I'm getting tired. MOD Zone 2 and the total for it, and MOD Zone 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you have the totals at the bottom to look at. So this is a pretty nice tool to have to break up all of your service. Just provide any shapefile, any polygon shapefile, and TBEST will break up your service and performance both observed and estimated inside of whatever shapefile you give it to. So that's the kind of operations analysis and jurisdictional assessment of your service and performance. You also have that by density. You can run a density report, and let's say it's total population. So for each one of those MOD zones, it will tell you the density and on a per acre basis, whether it's low, medium, or high within your data set. And then you also have a route density analysis. So this will give you, maybe you want to do total employment instead of total population. And we're going to do revenue service miles. So this report will tell you that Route 1, in terms of low density, there's 40.1 revenue service miles in low density, 321 in medium, and 128 in high. And it gives you the ridership and performance in each one of those density categories and the total for the route. So it's kind of interesting to see and how all of this breaks out, because this is the observed ridership and how it breaks out by density. And you can also do all this by chart. So if I open a chart, this is all the MOD zones and the ridership, observed ridership by zone. So MOD zone 5 has the greatest of 1,000, and then on down to 7. All right, so you can kind of see where all of this is going. You have maps and charts and reports that you can further break down your service as it relates to density and jurisdictions if you're doing that kind of work. Now, and also see that it's saved that data set, their snapshot data set, so I can come back into it anytime. So one thing I'll show you relative to this is that we're going to open the 2030 scenario. And for our Route 88, let's say that in the model, we weren't really happy with the results. So we know that they're putting an Amazon facility, right here somewhere. And we know that the population on our new stop that's going to serve the Amazon facility or the employment level is just way off. It's nowhere near what it will be when the Amazon facility comes in. So we want to make an adjustment for that. So how do we do that? Well, there's a couple ways to do that. So let's show all stops. And this was our location right here. And we're going to use our stop selection. We're going to select all the stops right here. Let's say they're both, in that area. And we're going to filter to just show the ones that are selected. And we're going to actually, in our view window, we're going to go to socioeconomic attributes. So now what we can see, instead of just our service and our stop name and special generators, now we can see what the TBEST model captured for those value for total population, total household, commercial, employment, service, industrial. So for these particular fields, we know that the employment numbers are way off here. So we can use our calculator and we can say that we want the total served, well, I guess this would be more like industrial employment, more commercial maybe. So this is going to be more like what, 10,000 people that would be employees, I don't know, something like that. And so if we hit update, it changes the commercial employment on both of those to be 10,000, because that's really what's going to happen there in the future. Is there going to be, that many jobs that are available. So we would save this and we would run the model. And instead of TBEST picking up that there are 1 or 2 commercial jobs, it's going to pick up these values as the employment. So basically we're overriding what the, when the model runs, it gathers this information from the census and the employment and all that. But we're saying we know better. We know what's actually going to be at that stop, and we can code that in and make the adjustment here. So, so I think this is really important for that kind of fine-tuning stops where you know there's going to be a massive change in land use and either employment or population. This is a great way to just override the defaults and put that in there. And you would have an actual count too of the employment. You would be able to estimate that, or that information would be given to you and you can put it in. So, so yeah, and what you can also do here is a percent increase. So let's say that, population is going to increase by 90%, right? So plus or minus of the percent of the current value. So here's our total population, and we say update here. So that gets updated based on a percent change of what was there. So you can do it either way. You can set a value, or you can do plus or minus a percent of the current.
Hey, Rodney.
Yeah.
Miguel asked a great question. Can the model be validated after updating the stop level employment number?
Say that one more time.
Can the model be validated after updating the stop level employment number? So can you edit this on a, first of all, could you edit this on a validated model?
Well, edit it on an unvalidated model and then validate it based on this. I think that's what he's asking.
I think so.
Huh? No?
Yes, I think that's what he's asking.
Okay. That's a good question. I think you can. I would have to check and run it myself to see, but I think you can. For now, I'll say yes, but I'm not totally sure. It's actually about 50-50 on that. So I'd have to check on that one. Good question. Okay, awesome. So the only thing left to show you is just, I'm not going to save that, but is the Parcel Editor. So we have about 12 minutes left. I'll just say, don't forget to fill out the evaluation. Boy, taking them out of me. Okay, so we're going to create a new parcel scenario just by right-clicking on our parcel scenario folder for our Gatorville system. And we're going to give it a parcel name or scenario name of, new parcel data set. And we're going to make it 2021 because that's really the year, or whatever implementation year that we have. That's what we want to make it. So if it's 2022, that the changes are going to come in, that's fine. Or if we're editing for 2021, that's fine too. So I'm going to say okay. So it's going to go out and make a copy of all the default parcel data set, put it into a new data set, and make that available for editing and load it up. So one of the drawbacks of this is that it is parcels, and there are a lot of them. So so just be aware of that all of them show up, and there's just a ton of them. So it's a little bit slow at times to do this type of edit. All right, so need to get to our Alachua County here. We're over, yeah, here's 75. So here we are. So we have lots of parcels, and so there's a few things that we can do here to help ourselves out. So we can set the map render properties, and we can render by building square footage. So this might, give us a little different view of the parcel. So basically the size of the parcel is relative to the building square footage at the parcel. You can check other of our values there as well. But this also kind of clears it up a little bit, so maybe we can pan around and see where we want to make some edits and some new parcels are coming in. All right, so maybe in this area, we're going to add some new parcels. So we can do this interactively. We can add a new parcel. It's going to be a single family. It's going to have, one dwelling unit. Population 2.4, that makes sense. That it's giving us the system averages. So the average population for residential single family is 2.4 for the system. The building area average is 1872 and the land area is 60,000 square feet. So all that looks good to me. And we can just click in the map to add new parcels. So if I add a parcel here, it will add it in, so you can see that it added a new one, added another one, etc. Right? So we're just adding parcels that are residential single family into that location. And you can add any of our types as you wish. If you want to add some restaurants in there, you certainly can do that. I'm going to switch the map render properties back to default render and see if that speeds things up a little bit. Probably will. Yeah, it does. So when you're clicking now, you can see they're coming in more quickly. It's a little faster render. We've added some restaurants in there with building square footages. We can also show this parcel distribution editor. So what this does is it actually shows us all of the parcels that in categories. So there's 85,766 single family parcels in the full service area of the RTS, which includes all the counties that we had selected. So there's mobile homes, 25,000, etc. Right? Condominiums, the number of dwelling units, the population, building area, land area, and all of that. So that's pretty cool. So we may want to just focus on a particular area. So instead of focusing on the entire area that we have, we can draw a shape in here and say, I want to show parcel land use within an area, and we'll load that. So we've defined this area. And instead of showing all of the parcels, it should just show the ones that are within that area. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there it is. So, so now we've filtered all the parcels down to this, and it updates all of the totals inside of this parcel distribution editor. And we can still add parcels here, etc. But we can also change these values. So let's say that I want to have, instead of 993 parcels for condominiums, I'm going to have 2,000 of them in my new world that I'm creating. And, maybe there's some multifamily greater than 10. There are, instead of 22, there's 44. So we're making changes. So we can make changes to the number of dwelling units. We can make changes to any of these values too, in terms of population, et cetera. So it will update all the parcels relative to this when we hit this update parcels button. So if I make these changes, what's going to happen is it's going to generate parcels inside of this area. The additional parcels that we're going to create for condominiums and multifamily. Okay, it's going to do this and it's going to generate the parcels. If there's any last questions that anyone has, we'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, thank you all very much for participating, sticking around, and hopefully you have some additional work to do when you get back and start working with this. So it added those parcels. It did it kind of in a linear fashion, but they're in here as part of this area. right? So we added these additional parcels, and whenever we went to, save this, so we save the edits to this layer, and once it saves, we're going to close it. Okay, and we'll close it. And so now we have our new parcel data set under parcel scenarios, and we can attach it to our TDP 2030. So if we go to the properties for our TDP 2030 and we go to our parcel land use data source, instead of the default, we can attach it to our parcel data set and we say okay. And then all of a sudden now when we run the model and do all our analysis, it's going to use that data set instead of the default data set. So hopefully that answered your question. And yeah, so everyone have a great evening. Thank you a lot for your time. If you have questions, follow up with us either through email or calls or whatever. We're happy to help anyone that had problems during this with installs of TBEST, security, not really liking TBEST and kind of killing it. All of that we would be glad to help you with in terms of some of the technical issues involved there. Or if you have any procedural issues, we will be posting the slides eventually up to the website along with recordings. So just look for those in the near future. And again, we appreciate your time. Any last questions, please ask. Other than that, have a great evening and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Matt. And thank you, Chris, if you're on.
Thanks, Rodney.
Okay, you're welcome.
Take care, everybody.
Okay. See you.